All right, hello. Okay, good evening. Welcome. Welcome to the inaugural series, the inaugural summer series of town halls with the mayor. I'm so glad you guys are here. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to make sure to first acknowledge, and if we can all acknowledge, that Pastor Amy Walker has graciously allowed us to do this event at her church. So yeah, we could all give her thank you very much. Because otherwise it was going to be outside at the park in a pavilion, and I don't think anybody would have shown up. That's not what you do in summertime in Fate, Texas. But before we begin, I saw him back there a second ago. Where did Pastor James go? Oh, here you go. Pastor James, if you would come up and lead us in a prayer before we get started. Ask Pastor James to do this because I want to make sure that we recognize the importance of opening in prayer and guiding not just individually, but guiding our great city. So this is Pastor James. Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. And we do have a church service that we do here for the youth every Sunday at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm grateful for LifeSpring allowing us to use that building for that ministry. Let us bow in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you again for allowing us to come and gather together in this place that we call the house of the Lord here at LifeSpring Church. Thank you for our mayor. Thank you for his family. Thank you for all those that are here, all the ain'ts and the saints, Lord God. We thank you for creating all humans, the good, the bad, the ugly. We thank you for all of them. And help us, Lord, to understand that you desire for us to live in peace, to have reconciliation, to have unity, to have understanding. Lord God, you've told us through your word that you would prepare a table before us, David says, in the presence of our enemies. Lord God, help us to understand that no matter who claims to be our enemies are unseen. They're not physical. There are things that hover over us. So Lord, put a sheet of angels over this building and put a sheet of covering over Mayor Greenberg right now, so that as we talk together, that we will actually have a spirit of collaboration, a spirit of unity, a spirit of reconciliation, a spirit of understanding, a spirit of tolerance with each other to learn. And Lord God, help us to learn from each other. Mayor Greenberg doesn't know everything. We don't know everything. And just allow us to communicate in such a fashion, Lord, that we will come out of this place better than when we came in. We thank you again, Lord, for your Son and for all that you've done for our city. In the precious name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, thank you. I would ask Pastor James if he thinks I'm one of the good, the bad, or the ugly, but I'm afraid of his answer, so I'm not going to ask that question today. Okay, well, welcome again. This is our first of 5 summer town halls. I'm really excited that we're going to be doing these together. I want to say just kind of how I envisioned these to work. First and foremost, kind of some housekeeping, if you will. We do have some forms on the back to write questions. I'm doing that so that we have a record of them, so that those questions can be answered. If they don't get answered, or if I have to say, I don't necessarily know the answer to that question, let me find out some of that information and bring that to you, that we have it. So please make sure if you want to ask a question, you fill that out. That does not mean that there can't be follow-up questions and some dialogue, but I do want to make sure that we respect anyone and everyone who would ask a question for that. You have a form up there. If you can get that to Mr. Mike Laborde up here in the front, and he'll make sure those questions get answered. The other thing I want to say is that because we are in a house of the Lord, I would very much appreciate if everybody would keep this civil. At the end of the day, while we might have vehement and strong disagreements with one another, we are in somebody else's space right now, so let's honor and respect that. I promise you, if I'm not answering a question to your satisfaction, if you stay respectful with me, we can continue to have these multiple times again. I don't want to have to. I don't want it to be where we can't figure out where to do these because people are nervous about what's going to happen at the different events. So let's maintain that respect level, and I think we're going to have a really good time tonight and for at least 4 more nights throughout the summer. So I think it would be prudent, I think it would be wise before we necessarily open up for questions or even to talk about our 2 topics that I had put on the flyer that we could talk about the comprehensive plan and then the budget process, let's address two big elephants in the room. Let's start straight out of the gate. I say transparency all the time, so let's be transparent. The first one, somebody has probably asked a question. Mike, just to be clear, you are still more than welcome to ask this. I've instructed Mike, do not remove any questions that he thinks might be bad or anything. Ask them all. So if this is a repeat, still continue to ask it so that we can see that. But why now? Why all of a sudden is Mayor Greenberg doing town halls? And let me answer it this way. Even before I put this flyer out, I had multiple people come up to me and say, well, are you going to live stream it? Are you going to record it? And at first that was bothering me because I was thinking, well come see me in person. That's you want to fill a space. Anybody who loves to see people that they get to interact with. But the theme became very clear. People are very nervous right now to come show up at city functions and with city people. There is an air of toxicity in our city right now, mostly promoted on social media, that make a lot of people not want to get involved, that scare a lot of people away. I have people who will ask questions and say, I don't want to come to meetings, I don't want to come to events because of that. And just to be very frank, there are people who have come to some meetings and then they find pictures of themselves online and people addressing them as, what are these characters doing? Why are they even here? They're looking weird. And we're just not going to get good people involved in our city if we're scaring everybody away. So I do have a challenge for us. So why now? Why now? Well, for a long time, that element of toxicity said, I thought, you know what? No, we're going to stay away from those. But right now, I think this is a very real opportunity to also see if we can't change that dynamic in the city. Let's see if we can change the temperature, if we can dial it down, have respectful dialogue, and ensure that the good people that want to get involved, that want to see how the city operates, that want to run for our boards and commissions or apply to our boards and commissions one day, run for city council, aren't fearful that they're going to be the target of such online hate. And so I don't know how these are going to go. I'm hoping that that we can take up that mantle and charge forward in a way that really reflects a statesman-like element here. We're about to celebrate 250 years as a nation. I've got my county-sponsored pin here. And what an awesome opportunity for all of us to promote that. Awesome opportunity for all of us to show, hey, we might have our disagreements, but look, we can come together with this. And so one of the reasons why I did commit to 5 is to make sure that people know I'm serious about that. And so each one of these I'm hoping gets better than the last, and I hope that each one has more in attendance than the last. And if we can start showing that, and if we can use this as an opportunity to get people to say, hey, you know what, I don't have to necessarily be as scared anymore to be involved, what an awesome message that would send to all the residents in our city. So that's answer number 1 as to why now. The second thing that I think that we should address is the process of the ethics complaints, because that has certainly dominated, I say the news, we're fate, we're not big enough to really have the nightly news, but has certainly dominated the online social media space for a while. And I tried to come up with a kind of a process way to explain how the ethics process works. So if you'll permit me, I'm going to talk a little bit about the process and how specifically it applied to our situation. And I can say that now because the council voted to waive privilege and we can discuss it. It's not to relitigate individuals' personal opinions, but to explain how this process works. So when an ethics complaint is filed by anybody, and I know that many of these have come from council members or now former council members, but when a complaint is filed, it comes to the city, and then the city sends it to a outside counsel. There were, and to be clear, there were already questions on, is that the appropriate response? I know that former Councilman Harper disagreed that was the way it should go. And truth be told, in our ordinance for that process, it doesn't explain that very well. So that's a perfectly legitimate response to look and say, well, wait a minute, why are we even doing it? But that's how the city proceeded forward. We get a kind of an initial, a first look. Here's what I found. Do I think, and this is the outside counsel at this point, Outside counsel says, this is what I'm looking at. I'm not doing a deep dive yet. I'm just looking to see, is there merit to this? And if the council decides there's merit, then a full investigation will commence. After that full investigation, we are told basically what's in the report, and then the council has to decide if we're going to move forward. And at that point, that moving forward from the investigation is to have a hearing where the council member, the affected council member, can speak, or people can provide some information, provide a story, if you will, and then the council can take action via sanction, some kind of, we have a list. It's in your, it's online, it's in the ordinance, you can see them. I think there are 6 or 7 different levels that the council could do. So with that said, it's important to understand what happens during the investigation process. That investigation, and I'll say specifically with mine, where I found there was a major deficiency in Mr. Fisher's report, was centered on the question of deliberative process. What is deliberative process? And how is that different, perhaps, than confidential information? Because that's what the person who filed the ethics complaint against me said. Releasing of confidential information. And it's important to note that legally there are standards by which a city can withhold information from the public. There's one, confidential by law, which would basically mean that even if the city wanted to shield it, the law says, no, you can't. And even if, I should say it this way, even if the city said, no, let's go ahead and release it, the law says, no, you absolutely can't. Let me make sure I correct that. We could say, yeah, go ahead and release it. Not like a good example there would be like Social Security numbers. I couldn't give out Social Security numbers of the city employees, even if I said, yeah, let's give it out. The law says, no, that's confidential information. But now this question of deliberative process, what is that? Well, I did some research and looked at the Attorney General's office, who's the body that would make a ruling that would tie a city to either withhold something or allow something to be released. And I said, by what process is something determined unreleasable or redactable or to be withheld, however you want to look at it, based on the law? And the Attorney General's office, who issues the ruling, the staff attorney I spoke to, said that deliberative process, to withhold something as a city, you have to first seek a ruling to withhold something. And that's great. Let me just pause there. That is phenomenal. Because if we want to live in an open society, we would rather the standard be, we have to ask, we have to present the compelling argument to say, we need to withhold this. Imagine, and I just want to paint a picture, imagine if your city council or if your city attorney could just say, we don't want to release this. And somebody said, all right, we don't have to release it unless somebody asks us, and they beg, and we charge them a lot of money to send it down to the Attorney General. No. It should be releasable unless we, and when I say we, I mean the governing entity, make a compelling case. And at that point, the Attorney General, we'd have to wait on that ruling for him to say, or for the Attorney General's office to say, yes, you can withhold it. And keep in mind, just because we submit a request to withhold something doesn't mean that it's withheld. The Attorney General can and does come back and say, no, you can't withhold this, you have to release it. All right, so that's the process. It's also the process, and hear me very clearly on this, that if you do not seek a ruling to withhold something under deliberative process, that is considered a voluntary disclosure. Our city did not seek, even prior to when the council voted to waive the deliberative privilege, our city did not seek a ruling from the Attorney General. So what does all that mean in relation to what happened with these ethics complaints? For somebody to say there was an ethics complaint against Mayor Greenberg for releasing deliberative privileged information as confidential, not only is it not confidential by law, but the city did not ask to withhold it. So the city not asking means there's nothing that couldn't have been released. The only thing that could have come back would have been, here is something confidential by law that you're still not available to release, and none of that was released. So the reason why I said that my ethics complaint was not, I do not think it should have moved forward, was because nobody was able to provide, Mr. Fisher, the outside counsel, was not able to provide anything that said I released that without authorization. Now, let's talk a little bit about ethics complaints as they relate to matters of law versus matters of public opinion. Anybody is free to think that somebody acts in an unethical way about anything, right? Somebody cuts you off on the road, that's an unethical person right there. We don't like them, and we say some things about them, and then if we say too harsh of things about them, we repent of that later, right? Or you hear your 3 daughters in the back repeat the words that you say, and then your wife slaps you in the arm, and you realize, hey, I got to be a little bit more careful on what I say in the car when somebody cuts me off. But then there's matters of ethics as it pertains to our city charter, our code of ethics, and how you move forward in at least a quasi-judicial setting. So again, Mike, I have no idea if there's some questions on that. I'd be more than happy to answer any kind of specifics there. But I wanted to at least address those two elephants in the room because I figured somebody was going to want to know about it. I've seen some of the chatter online, and so I wanted to make sure that we spoke freely, openly about that. But again, I encourage anybody who feels like they still have a follow-up question with that to ask. So now let's get to some of the fun stuff. Let's talk about the budget and the comprehensive plan. And I'll first talk about the comprehensive plan. So the comprehensive plan kind of kickoff meeting was last night. And one of the themes that I think is very profound that I want to make sure that everybody knows, not just the people in this room, people watching online, is that the comprehensive plan consultant group that we're going with repeatedly stated, this is not their plan. It's not the one that they've come up with. In fact, they did not present to us here's where we think Fate's at, here's where we think Fate should go, this is what we want to see for your city. If you do this, we'll tell our friends to come visit Fate because then it will be cool. That's not what the comprehensive plan is. The comprehensive plan is our opportunity to shape what we want the city to look like. And I'll give you an example here. And one thing that I think that I'm going to bring as a member of that committee, I'm not the chairman of that committee, wanted to make sitting in that center chair as mayor is enough for me for now. But one of the things that we get to do is we get to decide what we want the city to look like, not just in some of the buildings, not just in some of the spaces that we put in, but also in the total population. I was talking to Mayor McCallum over in Rockwall a couple of days ago, and one of the things that because they just did a comprehensive plan update, one of the things that they did was they slashed their, I guess you could say their top, what are they going to be at build out in terms of once everything is built, once there is no more land to decide what to do with, how many total people are going to live in Rockwall? And they slashed that from their prior comprehensive plan of 120,000, they got that down to 85,000. Now, that's a huge achievement. And that's the kind of thing that we get to do. That's the kind of opportunity that we have in being part of a comprehensive plan update like this. Another thing, and by the way, I'm not saying we're going to use exact numbers or exact percentages, but something to be thinking about. Another thing that they did was any new home that hasn't already been approved and started on construction, one of the things that they've done is make it so that any new home that's built is going to be on a 1/4 acre or more. Now, I know we have our Crenshaw development up in the north side of Fate, and we can talk about that too if we want, but my point with saying all of this is a really unique opportunity for individual citizens, both the members of the committee, but then also the working group, and then anybody who wants to come to say, here's what I want Fate to look like. Here are my concerns with where Fate is going. Of course, traffic is a concern, but we've also seen some businesses that have come in and have already shut down, and that's a concern. I've heard from people who say, again, traffic is kind of the #1 issue, admittedly, and so that's why the rest of the council was ready to give me a helicopter to just avoid all that traffic. But I said, no, if everybody doesn't get one, I don't get one either. That was a joke, just making sure everybody knows for the online people. But one of the things that outside of the traffic is, do we have the infrastructure to get businesses the foot traffic that they have? What are we doing about downtown? Let me tell y'all something. I will be devastated if the Fate Creamery ever goes out of business. Wherever they move, that's where my family and I are going to move, because that is delicious ice cream. And if you have not been there yet as a Fate resident, that's a, you know what? I don't want to know, because I don't want to have to get ugly up here. But ultimately, what are we doing about that? We want the businesses that come in to be successful. We want them to thrive. We want them to be a draw for other cities in our county to come get to see us. And so the comprehensive plan is kind of our blueprint. It tells, and this is important, it tells developers what we want to see in Fate. It isn't necessarily a legally binding document in that it has to match every single thing perfectly, because we also don't, if you look at the plan, it's not like we have a big map here and we say, all right, here we want the Jersey Mikes, and then over here we want we don't do that. It just simply says, this is how we'd like to see Fate move forward. Where do we want to see the pockets of good, solid commercial activity? Where do we want to see more residential areas? What do we want to do about the parks? We have a really young population in Fate, and that's fantastic. So how do we continue to attract young families? Again, like I said, attract people from around the county. One thing that has been really fun about being mayor is listening to everybody talk about Sauce and Vine. Because even though I don't own a piece of Sauce and Vine, I mean, my wife and I have gone there several times. I wasn't part of the building process to that. Anytime somebody says, oh yeah, you guys have a great restaurant up there, Sauce and Vine. So, yeah, we do. Yeah, come out some more. Come see some other stuff that we have. And so that's what that comprehensive plan and what the update we're doing is going to be. Now, it's not a complete overhaul. And I know there's been kind of some speculation or some confusion on that. We're not completely redoing the plan, but we're updating it. Last time this was worked on was during COVID. So I think even from a standpoint of what we thought was going to be the new norm when it comes to working from home, some of that has panned out, some of it hasn't. But we are in a unique position to, I think, get close to that finishing of the build-out process. Where we're at right now is really deciding, hey, if we're at that tail end of the land available and what we want Fate to look like, we're there. And we get to be the ones that decide on that. So I just want to present that charge to anybody in here. Not only please show up at these meetings, talk to your council members, talk to me about what you want to see, what works, what doesn't work. And that's another thing I do want to say too, because you'll see some pictures over the next couple of days, I think, or maybe into next week, of a bunch of posters that were all on the wall in City Hall, and everybody was writing Post-it notes on what works in Fate, what doesn't work. That's equally as important to know. Right? We want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, right, Pastor James? Who knew that prayer would be so influential, even in this part? But ultimately, what works, what doesn't work, obstacles that we think we're going to have, challenges. There was one, and it was called the one thing. Patty, correct me. What was it? The one thing, like the one thing about Fate you love. It was something that basically, like, what is the one thing that you love? What is really cool? Okay, thank you. One thing that would make it successful. Those are some great questions. And here's the beauty and let me say this, here's the role of the consultants. They take this information, they take our information, they don't add to it. They don't, once they take all those Post-it notes off and put they don't add another 30 Post-it notes on with their own ideas and what they want to see. There's no stuffing the ballot box kind of thing. But they take all of that information, and they come back and say, okay, this is what we think your comprehensive plan now needs to look like. And that's what developers will see. That's what real estate agents will see. That's what anybody who's interested in moving out to this area, if they go online and look at it, that's what they will see. And how is that built? It's built by us. It's built by the people that live here. That's a remarkable thing. We do it every 5 years, but it really is something that I encourage. Again, if you're watching online, please get involved. And if you don't know how to get involved, please email me, email any of the council members, and because we would love to make sure that you're on the list, you're constantly aware of when these meetings are happening, and you can come give your input too. And again, we might ask some questions on that later, but the other thing I want to talk about before we open it up to any questions that you guys may have, let's talk about the budget process. And it's confusing. It can be kind of convoluted. I remember when I was first elected, and I had a lot of people that would say, it's going to take you a while to understand budgeting as it relates to city finance. And I remember thinking, it might take everybody else a long time, but give me a week and I'll be an expert in it. And I'm now on year 2 of doing this job, and I'm going, okay, the city manager used an acronym. If I'm on my phone, I'm making sure I understand exactly what he's talking about. But one thing is very clear with respect to individual, whether it's individual accounts or what we're spending here on and the amount that we're spending there. One thing that's very clear is, from a direction of the council, is how we steer your money. Because it's your money. At the end of the day, it's your money. And what we do get to decide is the tax rate. And so I'm going to go a little professorial on you for a moment. That's my day job, in case you didn't know. But let me explain a little bit about how those rates work, and then I'll give you at least my philosophy on how to do city budgeting. So you heard, if you watched the council meeting on Monday, if you haven't, I encourage you to go back and watch it. You'll see where we are as a council, where we're unified, where there are some differences. It would give you an awesome opportunity to see those differences and then come and make a public comment at a future council meeting if you'd like. But there are a couple of different rates that we could adopt, a couple of different numbers, if you will. And the first would be maintaining the same rate we did last year. This means that the tax rate, the number, doesn't change. Your tax amount will change because that rate is attached to your housing value. And so whatever the state does when they increase exemptions here and there, and then whatever house value you have, the rate stays the same. So that would mean that if your housing value went up, you will likely pay a little bit more. If your housing values go down, you would likely pay a little bit less because the rate is based on your housing value. Then there's the no new revenue rate. And this allows us to capture all the new growth. I hate to say capture, that almost sounds, it allows us to use and receive. There we go, that sounds voluntary then. It allows us to receive all of the new development that came in, and then it adjusts the rate so that you aren't paying any more or any less than the year prior. Now, this is great when housing values shoot through the roof, because we don't necessarily want the same rate, because if you have the same rate and your housing values just continue to go like that, you're going to pay more and more. So no new revenue can essentially allow it to adjust, and it's almost like saying, hey, we just want you to pay the same amount, so we'll work on whatever the rate needs to be after that. Figure out the amount that you paid last year, what does the rate need to do? And it can fluctuate. Then there's the voter approval rate. And this kind of sounds weird. In fact, I had to look it up and figure out what everything was going on with this, because what it sounds like is voter approval rate. Oh, this is what the voters have approved. This is what the voters want. What the voter approval rate means, or what it is it's the effective rate that we can increase without having to come to you, the voter, for approval. So if we wanted to raise the tax rate 3.5%, we can do that because it's under the voter approval rate. The state, Austin, our state legislature, they're constantly, you might have heard them talk about this before, they typically file a bill, or a bill gets filed and debated every legislative session, where they talk about, do we want to lower the voter approval amount to 1%, 2%? Do we want to do away with it completely? Any tax increase would need to go to the voters. So that's what Austin does. But they have effectively, as of right now, that rate is set so that we could, not advocating it right now, I want to be very clear with that, but we could raise the rate up to a certain amount without it becoming an election, without it going on the November ballot for you, the people of faith, to decide. Then there's de minimis, last one, I promise, and then we'll move on. Then there's de minimis, and the de minimis effectively says, hey, we know that you need the voter approval rate plus a little bit more, but at that point it's tied to a dollar amount. So it has been referred to as the fire truck rate, which basically was like, hey, we understand the rate might need to increase, you've got to run your city, and if you need a new fire truck, the de minimis rate will get you there. That's about the cost or about the amount. And it fluctuates and it gets different, so I won't go into the weeds with all that. But it allows you, and that's kind of the top amount that you could then receive. And again, any questions on this that you have, ask Councilman Manifold, because he'd be more than happy to go over all this with you. He's the one that understands all of that. I'll talk to you more about ice cream if you'd like. So now let's talk about the philosophy behind the budget. What do you want to see in the philosophy behind the budget? You'll hear a lot of talk, not just from council members, and not in even a political way, but in a genuine conversational way with the public. You'll hear a lot of talk about things like fully funding our police and fire. You'll hear talk about adequately providing city services. We don't want to have to cut any city services. And these are great things. Of course we don't. We don't want to cut anything that we don't have to. So of course we want a fully funded fire department, a fully funded police department. But it's important to recognize, I think, a starting point. And that's essentially what the Monday meeting was all about. That Monday meeting was our city manager coming to us and saying, hey, I need to know how to direct my staff to prepare next year's budget. And so how do you want us to proceed forward? And I'm grateful that the council really only looked at the keeping the effective tax rate and then the no new revenue, because that means we're not starting from a point of we're gonna end up raising your taxes. That had been done for a long time in Fate, where that was kind of the starting point. That was it's just understood that taxes are going to go up. And one of the things I campaigned on was that's not how it has to be. We don't have to raise your taxes. And I use this example with people all the time. I say, if my boss came to me, I hope my boss is watching, if my boss came to me and said, hey, Andrew, here's the deal. We might be able to give out some raises this year. In between 0%, you wouldn't get a raise, and up to 5%. Which one do you need? What percentage do you need to maintain your standard of living? Well, what am I going to say? 5%. That's right. Probably going to ask for a little bit more because I got 3 beautiful daughters at home that all continuously do well in their dance competitions, which then means they get invited to do more classes. And so anyway, so I'm losing weight. I don't get to eat as much because they're taking all of that. But of course, it's easy to start at that top rate. It's easy. But, well, that covers us. But the question is not what should be the easiest. The question should be, what are we doing to be good stewards of your tax dollars? And so my commitment and what I would like to see is let's start from the standpoint of keeping the same rate. Because that shows the staff, hey, if you need more, justify it. And sometimes that justification's perfect. Sometimes that makes total sense. But I don't think we start there. I think we start at, this is what we had last year. We're already going to get, any new growth that comes in. But we want to start at a place where anything else that's needed should come before the council. And not just the council because it's 7 of us, but because the 7 of us represent you. As much as we might have seen a decrease with inflation in the last year and a half, energy prices, have you looked at those lately? Those are still through the roof. If you've looked at food prices, I'm waiting. I was told that, the egg prices would go down again, and I still am almost shocked every time I see the price for a carton of eggs. But one thing I think that's important is when and I talked to them, I'm sure you've talked to them as well, these are kitchen table issues when families are looking at it going, man, costs are going up everywhere. Can we make it so that the city isn't adding to that? And I was very encouraged, I want to say, at our last council meeting, if you notice, and again, if you haven't watched it, go back, our city manager acknowledged that we're able to do more with less. We've used different vendors for different things and have been able to cut costs there. So that means we don't have to raise the tax rate. We don't have to raise your taxes. We've consolidated departments. We've gotten more efficient at ways of doing things. So there are, of course, lots of different ways to protect your tax dollars. Because I campaigned on and I continue to believe that you know how to spend your money better than government. So let's provide those essential services and let you keep the rest. Again, we can always justify more. That's not the hard part. Justifying it is easy. But getting in there and saying, how can we make sure that we're not just assuming a higher rate, assuming more taxes? That's what makes that's what you want to see your representatives doing. Regardless of the decision, I'm not justifying anything with the staff. I'm not justifying anything with the city manager. I come and I justify that with you. And I want to be able to say, this is what we're doing with you as a city. This is how I'm protecting your tax dollars. And this is how we're going to keep your services high and continue to keep faith the place that you love to live. So that's kind of my philosophy on the budget. The budget meeting that we had is far from over. That was a budget workshop. So we've got several council meetings coming up. I encourage you to come. Tell us how you feel about different services that are being provided. What do you want to see that you're not? Similar to the comprehensive plan, are there things that we're missing? I would love to say that I had the time to drive through every neighborhood every 3 or 4 days and see what might be going well and what might not, but I don't have that capability. But when the people are involved, we can say, hey, we're deficient in this area. Let's see if we can pull from some other part of the budget. We did that last year. We took money that we had, instead of adding a new amount of revenue that we needed to achieve, we cut from some places and funded others. And truth be told, it's a fun process once you get into the groove of it. And so I'm hopeful that more citizens will be involved in that, because when you really get to see this is how that budget is operating and this is what we're doing with it, it creates a lot of fun opportunity to see where the city's going, what we can do with it, and really be proud of the accomplishments that we make. So my philosophy on the budget, again, if there are any questions on that, please continue to ask them. But at this time, we've got about 40 minutes left. I think this is a good time to stop for a moment and then start answering some of those questions that some individuals may have. So again, the questions aren't closed. If you've thought of another question at this time, please fill out the form so that we have it documented. The other thing, and let me explain this too, because I was asked, I don't know how many there are. If we don't get to them all, there is a space for you to include your number. One of three things is going to happen. One, I can call you directly and we can chat if it's a question that you wanted answered. Number two, I can save that question and we can do that at the town hall, so that way everybody's here and we can have some, have the fun with it that we're having. Or three, I can do a short little blurb and answer on that. But I do want to be clear before I go further with that, because I know that there have been some questions about my social media presence. And I do want to say that one of the reasons why you don't see me a lot on social media is because of the toxicity. I would love to answer questions, but as I'm sure you've seen, because they have gone around, there have been highly offensive and degrading images, not just of me, but of other people. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to engage with that. I don't think it's a requirement just because I'm the mayor to engage with that. That level of hate, I leave at the door. Good, genuine conversation, I'm all about that. So, Mr. Laborde, fire off that first question, please.
Okay. All right, Mayor. Also, some of the forms have a place for your phone number. Some don't. If you would like to include your phone number in one of the forms that I'm, just go ahead. And I've got several, like you said, on the topics I've already covered.
But go ahead and ask them again. Okay.
Absolutely. I also have a couple that are very similar, so those are some of those ones. And feel free to fill out, if you have more than one question, fill out forms. You don't have to put your name on it. Just there's a spot up here to put your name in case you wanted to call back or want me to read it. All right. All right. And if it's got a name, I'll read your name. This is Callie Beard. What efforts were taken to ensure the Comprehensive Plan Committee is truly representative of Fayette as a whole?
Okay, good question. Of course, Mike, I thought I told you to ask me what my favorite ice cream flavor was. I need a few of those first. So the question was, what efforts were taken to ensure that the Comprehensive Plan Committee truly reflected Fate as a whole? I would say that the beauty of the Comprehensive Plan Committee is that it includes members of the public who applied, members of each board and commission that we have in Fate, and members of the city council. So every single person was, aside from our two at-large, was is either on the committee that people voted for, and therefore voted for their ideas and voted for whatever door knocking they did on the campaign trail, as well as were appointed by those people who were elected by the citizens. So as much as it might be a degree of separation, perhaps, I think that it best reflects, because as a city council member, one thing that I have to do is I have to take a lot of people's thoughts and beliefs and ideas and directions and try to implement those. And so I think that by ensuring that that committee was formed by people who had, essentially gone through the process of making sure, and let me say this. So even on planning and zoning, on the MDD, on Parks and Rec, all of those individuals, in order to even be on that board, had to fill out an application and had to come and talk to city council members. Some of the people on the comprehensive plan, the CPAC, I did not appoint. And so that's, I think, the other beauty of it. And I didn't appoint to their position on planning and zoning, MDD, or Parks and Rec. Some of those individuals were chosen by prior councils. So you have people who have given us an interview, have talked to council members, who have filled out applications saying this is what they're about, this is what they want to see Fate look like moving forward. And I think it does a better job that way than necessarily let me say this. If we only opened it up to individual members and only the current council was able to choose individuals to serve, then there would always be the question, did the council only choose people that they liked or got their friends to apply and choose? That would be, I think, what I was trying to avoid from that. Instead, there are people that were appointed just by virtue of being the chair of their board or commission, and I didn't have a say in that part, and I didn't have a say in the prior council who appointed them. But it ensures that a lot of people, we know what they are, we know what they're about, we know they have a commitment to Fate, got to serve on that committee.
All right, staying with the comp plan, do you think the city's comp plan that was updated in the past in 2021 was comprised of what citizens wanted, or was it what the city staff and developers wanted? And do you think that plan being developed during COVID, when most citizens couldn't or wouldn't participate, affected the composition of the CPAC committee and the outcome of the final plan?
Oh, okay. Let's address that one part at a time. So do I think, the question was, in case you didn't hear, because I know we were getting some feedback, do I think that the current plan is reflective of the citizen versus the, okay, now I'm getting feedback too. Did you turn that off? Oh, okay. Do I think it's reflective of the current, of the citizens or of the staff? And then the second part was about COVID and kind of like, were there maybe some problems because it was COVID and not everybody was involved? Okay, so let me, that's a two-part question. Let me address it in both parts. I will say that one of the things that I wish more people knew about being not just mayor, but on council, is that as far as staff goes and what staff is given direction on, a lot of the staff is on autopilot. And I think everybody in this room knows, but just to make sure, being mayor is not a full-time job. Being a city council member is not a full-time job. We don't get a salary, we don't get pension, we don't get benefits, anything like that. And so a lot of what we do is kind of the 30,000-foot view, not necessarily diving down into the nitty-gritty. We kind of give a direction, we kind of give a way we want to see the city move. and then we expect our staff to carry out those wishes. And ultimately, it's the wishes of the people because they're the ones that elect the council. So I don't know that I would go as far as to say, in a sense that the city staff were the true beneficiaries of the comprehensive plan, as much as I would say that if there were any deficiencies of a lack of citizen involvement, then staff would have absolutely kind of filled in those gaps. These are people who that's their job. They went to school for it. They understand how to plan a city, how to build roads, all that kind of stuff. So they're the ones that are looking at that. With that said, I think that now is a very critical time and the response from last night's meeting was all positive, and I think it was great. In fact, I got an email from a citizen this morning about it, saying that it was wonderful. It was very nice to have received that email. Somebody that was there last night. I think now is where we get to go say, hey, because during COVID, not a lot of people were involved, and anytime you do kind of Zoom meetings or Teams meeting, that sort of thing, it becomes very cumbersome to get involved and say, this is the direction I want to see the city move. This is how I'd like to see the city progress. And so, again, if I had to say, with all the change that we've had as well, when I ran, I think we were number 8 nationally fastest growing city. And I would tell everybody that's not a title that we wanted. If you elect me, I'm going to make sure we're not in the top 10, which, by the way, we are not in the top 10 this year. So promises made, promises kept. But I think that with the explosive growth that we saw, from 2021 to now, I think it's more of there is just a need for some major changes with that. And we're going to get in there and we're going to change it so that it better reflects what the citizens of Fayette want now.
Okay. Let me get used to this new line. Just ask and answer, but I'm going to ask again. Why don't you engage much on social media like Facebook?
So the question was, why don't I engage much with social media like Facebook? Because I just don't believe that the majority of our conversations on Facebook are helpful. I think it's designed to spread falsehood. It's designed to mock and ridicule and scorn. And even when you answer something or when you engage, it's well, how come you hadn't engaged on anything before? Well, because everything else was either calling me names or calling somebody, a city staff member name or starting from a place that wasn't true. And so I think that, especially with the rise of anonymous posting, and the fact that I don't really see a lot of anonymous posters asking genuine questions without an obvious agenda. Instead, those are the ones that post, despicable images of people. I think that it's a tool that unfortunately is not a good tool to use right now. I think that to make the idea or to almost sound like that's the only way somebody could be involved or the only way somebody could engage with the public, I think is wrong. I think there are a multitude of other ways. I think that it's a distraction to try and say, well, so-and-so doesn't come onto my particular page or doesn't ever respond to me. Yeah, if you were to invite me, and I'll say too, in person, there are some people that if they were to say, okay, well, come over to my house and have a conversation with me about it, I would tell them no too. It's got to be I think there's a level of respect that we have to maintain, whether you agree with me or other council members or other members of the community or not. But until we see that decorum come back, I don't have any plans I'll post on my page and I'm going to try to get better at being much more regular with updates there, but I won't respond to a lot of the negativity and a lot of the hate going on.
Okay, this is Jeff Jenkins. Are you aware of any grants or funding opportunities for programs involving cultural, heritage, diversity, multicultural, or community celebration events?
So that's a great question, and our city manager and I had recently talked about a bunch of grants. To my knowledge, the grant side, I would have to say no, I'm not aware. I do know that we're looking at some grants for public safety, some grants for some economic development, that sort of thing. But no, so for any kind of cultural enrichment and kind of experiences like that, I don't. But if you will, Mike, put a little star on that one, and I'll follow up with Mr. Kovacs, that's our city manager. I'll follow up with him tomorrow to make sure that we don't. And I'll be able to come out and say either, based on this conversation, to my knowledge was correct, we don't, or if it's, oh yeah, actually we do, then I can put that in.
Okay, how would you communicate that back to?
I'll put that on my Facebook page.
Thank you.
Or if somebody has the number on there, I can call them directly too. Okay.
It's not on there, but he's welcome to.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, Matt Dearborn. What could be done to force single-family home landlords to keep the outside of their properties clean and in line with HOA rules?
So a lot of this comes to a code enforcement issue as well. We have, one thing I have learned is that we have standards, but sometimes those standards may not be followed completely and then followed up on. I've spoken with several individuals, not necessarily about maybe yard maintenance. It kind of sounds like that was the majority of that question. But there are certain things that the city can do as it relates to an HOA and some things the city cannot do as an HOA. One thing that I would like to start seeing is some more involvement with the city and the HOA boards. One thing that I've learned over the past year is that some of the other cities in our county have either council committees or they have regular meetings between some of their elected officials and executive city staff and their HOA boards, their presidents, or just some of the members of those boards. So I'd like to see some of that happen. That's one of the things I'm working on, kind of how to facilitate that, so that and for the number one reason, I know it can be frustrating when a citizen sees that their community doesn't look as clean. If it's in a home, we need to be able to direct them to what their HOA would say. If it's something city property or city related, we need to make sure we're enforcing that code properly. I know that there are some forms, some online forms you can fill out online that will allow you to show when something doesn't look right. I would encourage anybody to fill that out. It doesn't mean that if you fill it out and it actually was done wrong, nobody's going to knock on that person's house and say, hey, it was Sam Smith who reported you to the city. You jerk, get your yard mowed. They're not going to do that, but they will go by and see. But a lot of that is we have to know about it first, and I think that's the critical piece there that's sometimes missing is if I don't know about it. I mean, I was talking to a member here, not related to HOA stuff, but just different events that go on in the city. Sometimes we're not made aware of those, and so we have to be made aware of an issue, and then we can tackle which best avenue to proceed with that.
Okay, recently, the Fayette Fire Department has been a topic of discussion. City Manager Kovacs has said that we're fully staffed, and others say we are not. I'm all for more police and firefighters, but are we safely and fully staffed?
Okay, great question. So this is where it's critical to understand what the terms. What does being fully staffed mean? What does being fully funded mean? Because you'll hear a lot of that, and not in a negative way. The people that say that, I don't think they have any ill intentions. We, of course, want to make sure we're fully staffed, but what level of staffing is that? I'll use schools as an example. Many schools would love more teachers and more administrators, more paraprofessionals. And if you ask somebody in an education environment, they might say we're understaffed. If you ask a different individual or somebody who worked at a different school where they were able, their class sizes were a little bit larger, whatever, they might look at that same school and say, wow, you have more staff than we have. We're fully staffed, but we'd love to have your level. So it's a little subjective. And so what's critical there is to understand who are those in leadership that are having to deliver that answer. And so when I hear our Chief Taylor, our new Chief of Fire, Chief Taylor, we plan on talking with him about this very issue and looking at this as we're moving into budget season. Now's the time to ask him. Michael Kovacs, again, as you said we're fully staffed. I know we had some kind of a back and forth exchange, myself and Councilman Robbins. Always appreciate a good discussion with Alan. But we talked about what does it mean to be fully staffed, and sometimes there does seem to be a little bit of disconnect are we understaffed? And then the city manager says, no, we're fully staffed. But what does it look like? We could talk about where do we need to be a year from now, 5 years from now? Those are part of those conversations as well. But I think that as of now, I like to see data that show if you have X number of people, or you have, this many, and I'm just making this up, but this many fire stations, this many fire trucks, this many calls on average, this is what it needs to look like. And so I think you talk to your public safety leadership team, and I think you talk to your city manager, and you look at what the data show to develop what that number of being fully staffed or being fully funded is. As of right now, I don't have any reason to believe that our city manager is wrong when he says we are fully staffed. And so I take that into account when it comes to how to look forward on that for any budget requirement that might come from that.
Thank you. What can we do to make sure no mosques are built in faith?
Oh, good question. Boy, we're really diving into it now. Flip through those pages, Mike, see if I have a softball coming my way. What can we do to make sure that there are no mosques? Your city, let me say this, your mayor can't do anything. I will come back to that question, but let me first address this because I think this is good to know too. Another common misconception with being on city council or being mayor is that we have either a strong council or a strong mayor model. In Fate and in many home rule cities in Texas, we have what's called a weak mayor model. Now, that does not mean I'm weak up here. So if you want to, Miss Joanne, you come up here and let's arm wrestle and I'll show you guys just how strong I am. Don't you? Because I don't want to happen to lose and then I've got to deal with that. But a weak mayor model means that I don't unilaterally drive an agenda. I don't unilaterally tell somebody, nor does the council, what can come here, what can come there. We're bound by zoning laws. We're bound by, obviously, the First Amendment. And so I know that that's in the news a lot lately, especially as it was wrapped up with some of the primaries that were going on in the state, the Republican primaries, the Islamification of Texas. And while I am adamantly opposed to the Islamification of Texas and do believe that Islam is not compatible with our Western values, and while I do believe that this is absolutely a Christian nation, as mayor, specifically to answer your question, or to answer whoever's question that was, it is not up to me if a mosque comes to a particular area or not. That's up to federal law, federal protections, state law, and with that zoning law. And so if something is zoned properly, if I might not like it, just like individually we might like this coffee shop versus that coffee shop, or I don't eat sandwiches, so of course I don't want a sandwich shop coming in. That's no different there as much as it pertains to what I as a mayor have the power to do.
Okay. Patty Stern. Many cities in Texas are continuing with concerns about data centers being built. Will Fate ensure that we do not have any data centers, even if offered tons of money to build, and rezoning industrial areas to commercial or residential?
Okay, so as far as data centers go, so long as I am mayor, I do not like the idea of data centers coming to our city, and I will adamantly oppose them. Would you say the second part of that question, please, Mike? I just want to make sure I answer that part too.
Even if offered tons of money, and rezoning industrial areas to commercial or residential.
Well, and let me say this too. Here's the thing that we're slowly starting to realize. Water is going to become a big deal in the state of Texas in the next couple of years. This is why our state legislature is looking at it. This is why cities are looking at it, why agreements are starting to be made now. And so I think it's absolutely prudent to say everybody can offer all the money that they want for these data centers, but if we're not addressing the problems that are going to matter most we see other cities in other states deal with water issues. And so data centers need incredible amounts of water, and I think that until we figure out those kinds of problems, we don't even need to be discussing that, as well as even if they offer lots of money. That was the question there. I'm more interested in building a city that the citizens of Fate are proud of, not how can we just get some more money in in our coffers so that we could add some more stuff. I think that to me, it's almost the principle of, if I offered anybody in this room, if I said, hey, I'll triple your salary, but you're going to work 75, 80 hours a week and not get to see your family, why would many of us in this room turn that down? Well, because there's more important things than money, and we're not struggling as a city right now. We continuously keep a great amount of money in our reserves. I think it's 120 days. We have we get financial awards all the time as a city. We run a really tight ship. And so we're not hurting for cash. So I'm never going to look at that as an incentive, like, because we just got to have some extra money. So absolutely not. You're not going to incentivize me with something that we don't need right now, as well as the quality of life I've heard from multiple citizens, even before this question and the data center recently coming up. And I've read some articles online about it. But even before that, I don't see a lot of push for citizens to want to bring those to our community. Nor do I.
What can be done about new roads having standard 12-foot lanes, being straight, and stopping the installation of traffic circles?
That will come down to making decisions on infrastructure. So the funding mechanism for many roads is kind of difficult. I don't know if you were at the council meeting, I think two council meetings ago. We did get a special visitor from Commissioner Stacy, who told us that the county was investing $10 million in Benton Payne. We're very grateful for that. But a lot of roads, or roads, I should say, cost a lot of money. And so the idea of having roads of narrower widths is to save money. However, the trade-off, and this is where it's important to talk about, where I think a lot of people gloss this over, unintentionally, but gloss it over, is what's the safer option for our community? Because as much as I want to limit the amount of time I'm in traffic, or limit the amount of time it takes me to get somewhere, I would much rather sit in a car for an extra 2 minutes and get there safely than be involved in some kind of wreck or have major problems with that. And so that is your council's responsibility to tell city staff, this is the direction that we want to go, as well as, and I mean it when I say it, this isn't just an appeal to get everybody to come to city council meetings. Come to city council meetings and say in the public comment section, you don't have to use all 3 minutes. I've developed a reputation for allowing people to go longer than 3 minutes, and that's completely okay. But come talk to us about that. The more we have people that are saying, this is what we want Fate to look like, the more your council's going to know, okay, we understand. And life is a trade-off, right? I mean, so many things in the decisions that we have to make. I teach economics and government. And in my economic class, we talk about trade-offs. We are not going to get a budget that's going to make everybody happy, that's going to get every single thing we want at the price we want to pay. We have to make decisions. And so right now, I think we have many on council that do support a more kind of the standard. Let's keep the roads safe. Let's keep the roads as wide as they need to be, versus trimming them down just to save. But I also want to be very clear with everybody in here. While your council might be able to deliver that to you, understand that if those roads are then more expensive, there's also that understanding that, hey, we're paying for that, which is okay. We pay for the things that we want. We're paying for that, and that's okay. But we understand that trade-off does exist.
All right, back to the budget. I've heard some people say that the city should justify every expense every year instead of just carrying last year's budget forward. Is annual justification something we should be doing, in your opinion?
Well, I think I said this earlier, but I'll say it again. To me, the justification should be justified if you need something new, or if you need more of something. And again, to be clear, justification does not mean you got to come to me and all 7 council members are going to have in their mind an inherent no ready to answer. It's just a way of making sure that people know, if you're going to ask for more of our tax dollars, here's why. There are some things that I think, and not just the people in this room, when I say everyone, but our city, our county, there are some things that I'm sure if somebody were to come up to you and say, hey, we could do this, but it's going to cost a little more, we'd say, absolutely, I love that idea. a lot of things, say, hey, we can do this, and say, do we need to do that? No, okay, well then no, I'd rather keep the money in my pocket. I'd rather you not raise that tax rate. The fear too, and I don't think I said this earlier, let me say this here. The fear I think we should have, that healthy fear, is as if we just continue to adjust that tax rate up and up and up year after year, because it's just a little bit more this year. We just need a little bit of a justification this year for that, and it's just a little bit. Well, eventually you're going to get to a really high tax rate, and I would encourage you to go online and do some research at how many times that tax rate, not I don't mean here per se, but just in general, how many times that tax rate comes down. So yes, the starting point is you've got the same budget you have last year. If you need more, justify it, but also be prepared for some pushback. You know, again, I give credit to our city manager, Michael, when he said the other day, we've saved money just by switching vendors. If we can switch vendors and save money, I will exhaust all of those kinds of options before I come to the taxpayer and say, hey, we need more of your hard-earned dollars. Because when that happens and when he's successful in that, that means, hey, let's continue that. And I don't think it's a problem to require that our city staff would come say, hey, we have gone with new vendors, we have reorganized the budget as we are able to, but we still are coming up short. I'm okay with that, but let's start from, you got your budget last year. If you're going to need more, you better make sure that those expenses, those new expenses are justified.
Again, if anybody has another question, follow-up question, please go ahead and submit it. Okay, still on the budget. I pulled this before, since we're on the budget. Why do city projects always come in over budget, and how can it be stopped?
Why do city projects always come in over budget, and how can it be stopped? One of the things that big projects need are time and money. Obviously they need money, but they also need a lot of time. And we have seen that as costs have increased just by inflation, budget costs also increase. One of the things I think that, and I talked to Michael, our city manager, about this a couple of weeks ago. One of the things that I think needs to be better communicated is the contingency amount in our budgets. Because we do allow a certain amount that we say, here's the total price, and really, if we could snap our fingers and pay the cost today for that particular project, we could build it. It wouldn't be that amount, because we have anywhere between 10 and 20% of a contingency in the budget. So the question becomes, and I think where we sometimes get frustrated is we will look at the dollar amount of the project, and I'm just using these as numbers here. We see it's $5 million. And it comes back at $6 million once it's fully built or once the process actually happens. Well, where was that contingency discussion? Sometimes it's discussed and it's made very publicly known, and it feels more transparent in the sense that you can see, okay, if it's going to cost $6 million, we know that there's that little bit of we could call it breathing room there. I'm not as keen on having that contingency amount be a large amount. I don't like 20% contingencies, because that also, I think, creates an issue for if we are coming in under budget. Well, now we've got 20% of the project cost. What else can we add to it? And I don't ever want us to do that. But I think that probably should be better communicated to say, hey, here's the cost. If it was built today, we are anticipating an increase, and that's where this contingency process, that's what this contingency amount is. Because if it was something that we could build in a month, you would see very little change with that total amount, because those prices don't move. But like we talked about earlier, with energy costs going up, building materials going up, sometimes even our best, most conservative estimates on a project cost are completely overshadowed by rising costs everywhere else. But that's a good question. I like that one.
Okay. Last budget question that I'm happy to stack right now. When we vote for a bond, should citizens expect the city to do what was promised, or can the plans change after bond approval?
The question was, when we pass a bond, should we expect the city to do as promised, or can it change? Was that the gist of that question?
Yeah, or can it change?
Or can it change? I certainly believe that if the citizens voted on a bond for a particular measure, for a particular building, for a particular park, whatever, that it does need to be as in line as possible with the what the citizens voted on. I would imagine that the question, maybe, I could see two parts of that. If something needed to change from a cost perspective, so for example, let's say if we were going to put the same number of trees in the park that we were going to, the cost of trees went up dramatically, and so we can actually cut some of the trees that we would have put to free up some of the budget for elsewhere in the project. Little changes like that, I think that as long as we're transparent, I think we should tell the public, absolutely, hey, this is going to have to change, but here's why. As far, if I'm gleaning correctly, that part of the question, if that's what somebody was asking specifically, but as far as can the project change dramatically to where it's almost like, whoa, now you're talking about something completely different, something new. Absolutely not. I think that needs to go to the voters. You know, I would almost look at it as project costs. If you're doing a home project and you originally had a certain type of marble plan for your kitchen countertops, the guy comes back and says, well, actually, those are a little bit more than I thought. We can change to this type and you stay within your budget. Yeah, if that's what we have to do to make that work. But I wouldn't say, hey, we took, hey, sweetheart, we took out this money or we saved up all this money to do a kitchen remodel. Well, why don't we do something cool in the backyard instead? That I'm not okay with at all.
All right. What can the city do about mostly kids on e-bikes and similar vehicles riding dangerously on the roads and sidewalks?
We have been talking about that at the city, and I know that our city staff have been working with county people, other cities and other cities within our county to talk about that. I know firsthand that we have an amazing police department who does go after that. In fact, I'll share this brief story. We were driving home the other night. My wife and I and my 3 kids were, and we saw several police vehicles, lights on, rush into our neighborhood. And so, of course, I was like, well, do we need to go home? Well, what did I do? Why are they, are they coming to the mayor's house? But we went, and they were driving really fast down the roads. It was night, and then it was when Candace and I saw one of these young men on these e-bikes. And so we just pulled over. I wasn't gonna, because I don't know what the kid's doing. I didn't want to get in the officer's way, so we pulled over, and we saw the young man on the bike get stopped. The police officers handled it beautifully, and so I was just sitting there, and so one of the officers came up and talked to me, and I said, we were talking about it. I said, this is a youth. This is an underage individual, 14 years old. And I thought, man, and that's when the officer had said, we have seen, not in faith, thank goodness, but we have seen where this is happening elsewhere. There are serious accidents occurring. I mean, people are losing their lives from this. And so I think it's something that we're absolutely taking seriously. I know I've spoken with another council member on putting an ordinance in place, making sure, but again, just the process, it does take some time, making sure we're in the process with what legal's looking at, what we can and can't do, how we're working with the city staff, and then also from an enforcement mechanism. We don't want to throw out an ordinance that just says something like, well, we strongly disagree with this. We want to make sure that we can follow through with the appropriate sanction, if you will, or I'd say punishment, but a consequence, that's a better word, a consequence, so that we show the community we're very serious that this won't be tolerated in faith, because we first and foremost want to keep your kids safe.
All right, thank you. What are we doing to keep Fate unique, and not just another city like Rockwall or Horace City on I-30?
What are we doing to keep Fate unique instead of just becoming another? Okay, well, whoever asked that, now you're forcing me in an awkward position, because I'm having lunch with all the mayors on Monday, and if they see this, I think they're going to take issue with being just another city in Rockwall County. So if you're one of the other mayors watching, I think your cities are great. But what are we doing? That's a great question. I do like that question. I think that if you go to our downtown, you do see a really cool, what I would say, starting point for something that could be really, really great here in our city. I think that we have a lot of good projects coming up. I think that because our focus has shifted to a lot more of a commercial development, but commercial over residential, in the sense of let's bring in some tax dollars and stuff to alleviate the burden on the people, but not just commercial for the sake of commercial, but commercial that's not only going to make it so that we don't have to leave our city, wouldn't that be awesome if we had some of the amenities and some of the other things where we don't have to go outside of our city? We can stay right here and also be a draw for other places. I think that there are some things I simply can't say right now, some projects that we will be coming forward with at a later date, just from a legal perspective, and kind of some of the stuff we talked about in executive session. But I think that the citizens, when we're able to fully announce and fully show what it is we're planning with that, I think that, let me say this. This is a good, and I like that. It just came to me. A good metric by which we become not just another city in Rockwall County is the metric of, do people want to come here and stay? Not, well, we're passing through, let me, stop on the side, get my Starbucks and McDonald's and then go. Which, by the way, I'm thrilled that we have a Starbucks and a McDonald's right there next to each other. It's right on my way home, so I spent a lot of money there. And so you're welcome, taxpayers, to keeping that money local. So I encourage everybody, eat at our shops, eat at our restaurants, shop at our shops. That's what keeps the money here. But are we creating something where people want to come and stay? And if we can develop that, that's the metric that we become not just another city. We have a sense of place, if you will. I think downtown station, well, we had some questions at a recent council meeting about that. I think that our downtown station Station Park is really going to be something that makes a lot of people look over at Fate and go, oh, wait a minute. We may have misjudged Fate and how it was growing. That's a cool place. I want to go there.
All right, we've got two left.
Okay.
Our local elections are considered nonpartisan. What's your philosophy on the role of local city government, and should it be partisan?
Oh, man, these are some great questions. Good for you guys. Do I think that local elections should be partisan? I do. And here's why. Everybody has a set of values. We can say all day long that potholes aren't red or blue, and that's an accurate statement, but that tells one fraction of the picture. I think that if somebody wanted to focus on everything but the city, I think that would come out in their campaign dialogue when they're running for elections. But I think that recognizing the values that somebody has is just as important for President of the United States as it is for mayor and your city council. Why? Because we're affecting decisions, or we're making decisions that are going to affect your everyday life. What happens in that vacant lot across the street that ends up making you decide, do you want to be part of that? Do you want to stay living in the city, or are you going to move out? All those questions, those are values questions. We can't, when I get up to the dais and open up a new meeting, I don't put my values, I don't put my worldview away. I don't hang it on the coat rack. So those are very important issues. Do I think that inherently that might make it a little bit more partisan in the way that we see partisan elections now nationwide? Well, sure. But arguing over the set of values that you want to lead your city, we should never shy away from, just so we can come up with cliche sayings that I'm the mayor for the Republicans and the Democrats in Fate. Just like our congressman is the congressman for the Republicans and Democrats, our senator is senator, our president is president. I hear a lot of people say, well, you got to be mayor for everybody. Well, I am. If people vote for me, they vote for my value set. If people don't vote for me, they vote for somebody else's value set. And that's completely okay. But I think that value set is something that we should know and we should be able to latch on. These are our leaders. And I think, yeah, absolutely. Tell us where you stand on all of these issues.
All right, last question, unless somebody wants to throw one more in. What is one thing about the city that you wish more residents understood?
I would say one thing, there's a lot, but I would say the one thing is that government moves slow, and that's okay. That's actually a good thing. You want government to take its time. A lot of times, by the time something gets to city council, it's been in the works for 6 months. And just because we pass it doesn't mean that 6 months later, it isn't going to go through another process. So things take time, and the amount of influence that your city council may have is probably not what you think it is. And again, I say, it's not because any of the seven of us, when we have a full council, aren't wanting to be involved or don't want to have a say or don't want to contribute positively. That's our charter. And just like we want our president to abide by the Constitution, we want our governor to abide by our state constitution. You should want your mayor to abide by the charter. You should want your council to abide by the charter. And so sometimes that means that there are certain things that I'm hands off on, and it's not within my purview to make those decisions. Sometimes I am, but it might take there are some things that are on our charter that require more than just a simple majority of the council. It might require 5 votes to make happen. Anytime we might want to do an investigation or raise taxes, that's a 5. 5 people have to vote on that. And so I think what I would probably say I wish that people would understand is that we don't have nearly as much power as people probably think. But like I said, I think that's a good thing. You don't want your government to have more power because then in the hands of the wrong people, that's tyranny. Tyranny 101. That's why, again, you probably can't see it, but it says 250 up here. That's one of the reasons why we have a nation today that we're going to be celebrating, especially at Fate. At our last city council meeting, we talked about putting together a float and participating in that parade. I think that's awesome. We want to showcase how great our nation is, but it's great because we don't have a lot of power concentrated in the hands of just a few.
Okay, we did get one more turned in. Alden Levitsky, being a destination city, can you discuss some of the things that are in the concept plan for the Fate Yards? CPAC stressed entertainment last night.
Okay, great question. And the only reason I'm punting this is because I want to make sure that I don't say anything from our executive session that I'm not allowed to. But Mike, please put that on the top of that stack and put a big circle on it. I'm going to ask what we are allowed to say, what would be totally in line with that, and I'll put that on my Facebook page tomorrow. No. That's a great look. That is, please understand, and as we're kind of wrapping up here, and I know, are we still good on time? I know we're at 7:36. Well, okay. The overtime rate's pretty expensive, so we'll pass around a collection plate here in a minute. One of the hardest things too, let me go back to that other question. What is something else I wish people knew is that it is hard to see some of the really cool things that we're developing and be told you can't say anything to anybody. I mean, I think I could say the sweetheart, so I'm just going to say it. My own wife will be like, "So what did y'all talk about?" I'm like, let me just wait on this because I don't want anything to get out. And I mean, the look she gives me, sometimes that is a hard look to have to be firm and say, "Look, I'm not doing it." So it's an exciting thing. I think from the standpoint, I think I can say this: the entertainment aspect of it and the good commercial development that's coming, it's going to be awesome. Let me find out specifically. Well, actually, we're off the 3rd. Or the staff is off the 3rd, but tomorrow's not the 3rd. Tomorrow's Friday, but not the 3rd. Let me send an email first thing in the morning, and I'll respond on my official Facebook page an answer to that question from what I can say. But that's a great question, and I hope that we're able to talk a lot about it so that could even be the topic of a future town hall.
That's it for the questions.
Okay, well, great questions, everyone. I appreciate you coming out and asking. This, like I said, this is the first of 5. My plan is to have at least 4 more of these. Please know that just because, and I know these were budget and comprehensive plan related, I will say I meant that on my flyer to be more about, these were 2 things that we just talked about in the council meetings. Any question is welcome. It might be a question that I can't answer right away, but I will find out. But the more opportunity we have to converse like this, the better. This is exciting. I love these kinds of things. And so I'm looking forward to the next one. I didn't want to plan it yet just because I know we have the 4th coming up and everybody's going to be gone. But be on the lookout very soon for the next town hall, the next set of topics that I'll bring up with it. And please encourage others to come. Hopefully you've enjoyed your time here. Encourage others to come and be a part of this. It would be great to fill these rooms and to bring back some of that excitement to getting involved in this political process. So thank you guys for being here. Y'all have a great night. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And thank you once again to our gracious host here at LifeSpring for having us. We would be honored to do it again, so we'll be in conversation about that. Thank you very much.